Mark Rupert, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Yeah, and 48-hour film fest, and filmmaker yourself, but yeah, 48-hour film. We were talking a little bit offline. I have never had the balls to pull one off. The brain power, the control of the self-control of stress and anxiety to pull off a 48-hour film. But tell me, Mark, tell me a little bit more about who you are, what you do, what you've been up to.
Sure. Well, I'm born and raised in Washington, D.C., and from a young age, really into film. I remember having my parents' Super 8 movie camera and shooting some stuff with my siblings and my friends way back when. And then I kind of put it on the back burner for many years until I was in my 30s and decided, you know what, I want to get back into this, see if I can make a profession out of it. And started my own production company doing a bunch of corporate videos in the DC area.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I read an article about two women who had started a 24-hour theater competition.
Wow.
And I said, that sounds so cool. I wonder if we could do it on video. And my immediate thought was, well, maybe we want 48 hours if we're going to do it on video. And the very next year, got some friends together and we gave it a shot where, you know, we got our assignment on a Friday night, and Sunday night, 48 hours later, we delivered films. And back at that time, there was a theater in downtown DC called Visions, right at Florida and Connecticut Avenue. And they had agreed to screen these films. And so the very first time out, there were 10 teams. And that same night we dropped them off, they were screened at Visions, and everybody had a great time. So even though that very first time it was just done as something for fun, it turned into what has now been 20 years of people all around the world making films in 48 hours.
Wow. So did you start the first 48-hour film fest?
Yep, that's exactly right. And,
awesome.
And just to correct you there, it's the 48-hour film project officially.
48-hour film project, yeah.
But essentially, it's this: teams register, and you can have any size team. It can be, we've had a single person team, and we've had a few times teams of over 100 people. And the team filmmakers have no idea what kind of film they have to make until the Friday night kickoff. People come to our kickoff event, and the first thing they do is they pull a genre out of a hat. So now they know what type of film they have to make. And then we assign a character, prop, and a line of dialogue that they've got to work into their film in some way. And then it's off to the races. Most teams will spend Friday night writing, Saturday shooting all day, and then Sunday is the editing process where people are sleep deprived and hungover from all their activities, and then they race in by 7:30 that night to drop off their winning films. So it's funny that you mentioned kind of the stress part of it. Well, what's interesting is that the strict deadline makes people much more focused, right? So many times, and this happened to me many times, is I have this idea, but I don't get my act together to film it or write it or to whatever. And the 48-hour throws all of the excuses out the window.
You ain't lying.
You don't have any choice. You got to make a decision and keep going. And then you come to the next point, you got to make another decision and keep it moving. So over the years, people have really, really enjoyed doing it. We have a lot of people who come back each year to participate. So it's been great continuing to produce this and bringing filmmaking joy to people around the world.
Yeah, I've been a filmmaker for about 15 years now, and it's always been on my bucket list, something to be able to say, like, I pulled it off, whether it sucked or whether it was great, whether I won, whether I lost, and depending on whether there's that that first prize, second prize type of aspect, who knows? But
Sure.
it's always been on my list, but just trying to find the time and a team. I definitely don't foresee myself doing it alone. Definitely.
Yeah.
But
I think you'll be pleasantly surprised when you finally get to it. That it really forces the creativity out of you.
Oh yeah.
So, and it can be very freeing when you don't have 100 choices. You just have, okay, this or this, go.
Yeah, And you're right. There have been some moments where something kicked me into overdrive, especially during this quarantine. I had a number of passion projects, a number of independent YouTube web series, 15 episodes per season type of thing, and everything was already shot, everything was in the can. And then when it gets around to like editing, when am I going to get my head out of my ass and start editing? And during the quarantine, me and the wife brought home our baby boy, and a week or two later, quarantine hit, and it was like, okay, I'm going to take all the night shifts. I'll do all the night bottles, all the night feeds, all the night diapers. I'll keep, and we had an extra bassinet. I had them right next to me, next to my edit suite, and I was up all night editing. And I said, okay, he's very, very easy, easy to handle. Every 2.5 hours, it's bottle, diaper, and then back to a nap or something, or maybe, hang out with him and show cartoons to him, or like very simple stuff.
Sure.
But really it was just, it was all the night feeds for me. And so that's kind of the schedule I worked out. And I said, I got to knock this stuff out in a month or two. He's going to start developing more of a personality. He's going to start being more hands-on and more hands-on and more hands-on. So that was the deadline for me.
Yeah.
And and I think that was at the very start, from like March to May, it was knock these things out, get them out of the way while he's while he's at that certain very content, very scheduled time, scheduled type of,
phase.
Phase. Yes. Thank you. Phase. So, so yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, if you were to just jump in and be like, okay, 48 hours from, Sunday evening. Yeah. It sounds like, they have to edit Sunday day, Sunday morning, Sunday day, and then Sunday evening is the screening. If it's like,
well, that was
Friday
the first year. We came in. We had a couple near disasters at screenings in the early years. I can remember the first year we did it in San Francisco. I was actually out there to run it, and we were using an editor that we had never used before. And so the drop off was Sunday. The screening was the very next night, Monday night. And this guy puts the whole thing together. Looks great. And this is back in the old days where he had to spit it out to tape. So he hits print to tape, and he has to leave. Well, the computer crashed 15 minutes later, and I'm freaking out because I've got 2.5 hours till the screening. So the roommate comes over, he gets something going, and long story short, I left with the first 45 minutes of the show in my hands, hoping that the second hour would make it in time, and thank God it did. But from that point forward, we're like, okay, screenings are going to be at least 48 hours later, if not a whole week later.
Okay.
But that's the big thing about the 48. If you can make it in 48 hours, you get to see your film on the big screen. That's what everybody loves. Not only do you get that fun of seeing yourself up there, but you get that instant audience reaction, right?
Yeah.
Did the idea you were trying to put across work? If it was a comedy, are they laughing, So that's just invaluable.
Yeah.
Of course, with COVID, we've had to change gears a little bit. That was the biggest change for our company, is that we are a live event company, and we're in 115 cities around the world, and each city has at a minimum a kickoff, a drop off, and 2 screenings, and some cities have as many as 20 events. So all of that had to come online, and so that was quite a struggle. But in the end, we still had 70 cities take place in the midst of the pandemic, and we were able to do a lot of online screenings, online kickoff and drop off. Went pretty smoothly. And the one thing I'm very proud of is that we became big proponents of safe sets, and so we furnished information to all the participating teams so they knew exactly what protocols to follow and how to just keep everybody on their team safe during the process, and that worked out very well.
Yeah, especially, so I take it utilizing Zoom, passing out the prop, the prop, the character, the genre, the line, all through, like a virtual meeting. And then once that meeting ends, like are you keeping a log, you know, say, you know, team A, I got off of Zoom with them at 8 p.m. So that's
We
8 p.m.
Yeah, we would figure out a way within each given city. So it's organized
Yeah.
by city. So the kickoff would have been at 7 p.m. in that city for all the teams at the same time. So
Okay.
we'd have either a Zoom call for everybody or live broadcast to YouTube, but some way that they're all getting the information at exactly the same time.
Oh, okay. And then obviously, you know, like it's digital upload to say
Yep.
what, YouTube or a shared channel of some sort.
Yeah, we've got a website called cinema48.com, which is specifically for the uploading. So that was something we implemented because of the pandemic, and that ended up working out pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, over the course of the last 10, 11 months, we've found quite a few, you know, evolutionary, revolutionary, progressive new ways of handling business, of taking care of each other, of being creative, being productive. And it's just, especially, I mean, imagine if, well, this did happen in the 1910s, the 1920s, or the Spanish flu.
Right.
Who knows what those folks are just trapped in their house and
Oh, yeah.
losing it. But now, you know, you just jump on a computer, you got live. I mean, Netflix just alone, YouTube, yeah. Netflix, the streaming, the internet, the everything digital, everything broadband. So,
yeah, not to mention the electronic meetings where you can see your family.
Oh, yeah.
You know, back then, I guess they were just completely quarantined away from each other.
Yeah, and you know, it's kind of like a headache to have, you know, some family members that are so regressive, not progressive, but regressive. And for Christmas, it's like, I got you this iPad, it's an amazing iPad, and they're like, oh, I don't even want to open it. And it's like, you're killing me, man. You're killing me, man. Open the freaking thing. I'm not going to be on the phone. And they still got rotary phones. They still got you remember, you know, you remember the cordless phones, you know,
right.
The dock with that digital mailbox.
Oh, wow.
Like your answering machine, but it's still like these very regressive technology. And it's like,
right.
I'm telling you, I'm not going to be on the phone with you for 35 minutes. You better figure out that iPad, start emailing me and texting me more, because I'm losing it. But
funny.
Still, I mean, you know, like you have to embrace those kind of moments, like that phone call with that person. But.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, we can talk about the technology of the last year, but even the technology in the time that we began the 48, the very first year we did it, it could not have been done any earlier because not enough people had editing systems on their home computer.
Right.
So 2001 was really the very first year that enough people had access to online editing. So that was the first thing. And then, of course, that first year we were getting tape. And some people were submitting on VHS even. So it was, you know, to see in the last 20 years how we progressed away from the VHS and then the mini DV tape and then to DVDs. And now it's been on flash drive for probably the last 10 years. So
I'm sure you said that, but what year was the first 48-hour project?
It was in May of 2001. And the funny thing about that is two things. One, there was no time limit. You can make it as long as you wanted. And most of the films came in around 11 minutes, but one came in 16 minutes. And not only was it the best film of that group, but they had edited it tape deck to tape deck. They didn't even have a computer editing.
Bro.
So they were really old school.
Yeah. So I went to Towson, you know, for, you know, film and TV production.
Right.
And eventually graduated. You know, that's that's what my degree's in, film and TV production. But I did the tape to tape. There was that one project you had to do a tape to tape edit.
Right.
You know, film one, you know, there's the 3 tiers: film 1, film 2, and film 3. So film 1 was reel to reel, 16 millimeter.
Wow.
And then once you're done with that, then you have to go back and do like an audio reel.
Okay.
And it's and you know, 99% of them just did a simple music bed. Yeah. No sync. You know, there was one guy that was pretty dope. I think he did some sync dialogue. You know, God bless him for figuring that out.
No kidding.
But then, you know, film two and film 3, we shot 16 millimeter, color 16 millimeter. But then we would send it to the lab, digitize. They would send us back you know, a mini DV, digitize that, into, I think it was Media 100 at the time.
Right. Sure.
Remember Media 100? Yeah. I mean, you're right. Yeah. I remember when I graduated, you know, my whole family, they all chipped in, got me a used iMac, a small little iMac. And I think iMovie was on it. No, eMac. It was an eMac.
Okay.
But iMovie was on it. And so then I had to switch over to iMovie.
Right.
And I hated iMovie so much. That's when people were like trading discs. Somebody had a Final Cut 7 disc, and you could only put that serial number on 5 different devices.
Right.
And then sometimes I wouldn't be able to log in. And at one point, and then I just, you know, went with the whole cloud-based Mac kind of thing. You know, Final Cut's already on there, compressor. I have some of the Adobe Cloud products now, you know, but there was, I've done my fair share of dumping stuff to a VHS or a mini DV or DVDs. I had a client a couple of years ago was, you know, at an impasse for paying me because he said, "Where's the DVDs?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? DVDs?" And this was 2018 or 2017. And I said, "Dude, when did we ever discuss DVDs? I shot this thing, edited this thing. Here's here's the digital download. There's a file on Google Drive." He goes, "No, we discussed DVDs." And I said, "Where the hell am I going to get blank DVDs?" I had to like scrounge up, you know, called up some other buddies. "Do you have blank DVDs?" And they're like, "Do I have what?" And so finally somebody had like a couple of blank DVDs, burned them some quick DVDs. Here you go. Paid me out. But even at 2017, 2018, like giving you a DVD copy, I'm not
funny.
Since when? But yeah, you're right. Yeah, I mean, technology just happens so fast. 01, was it beta tapes and mini DVDs?
Sure, we had beta tapes. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah. So how else have you been impacted, you personally, professionally, these last?
Well, the profession, you know, as I said, we just had to reduce the number of cities and also the number of teams that participated. And, you know, some people were nervous, of course, who wouldn't be in participating in a pandemic. But like I said, we've figured out the whole safe sets protocol. And I always have to say that very carefully, safe sets. And so we saw, as the year went on, we saw more and more people coming back to it, which is great. And we've already seen people reaching out to us, "Hey, when's it going to be for this year?" So we know that people are still into making movies. So that's great. Personally, as like everybody else, unfortunately for me, the virus hasn't hit close to home, and everybody in my house and my family's been safe. But you know, it's all the extra protocols. My oldest son went off to college this year, and first semester was just home online. And last week he actually went, but of course we couldn't take him. You know, so impacted like many people are, and just like everybody, I'm waiting for when I can get the vaccine and this whole thing can be behind us.
Yeah. I mean, you know, some people gotten it, and it just seems like it's. I guess I have very, I guess I'm very impatient. I've never been through some sort of pandemic like this until now. So, you know, God knows what it was like, you know, back in the 1910s, 1920s, that Spanish flu, that the big influenza thing, and waiting for that first vaccine. I mean, we take the flu shots we take the flu shots for granted. There's people out there that are willing to say, "Oh, I don't get flu shots. I don't get flu shots." And it's like, but now it's just at a point where people are like, "What is taking so long? And how long did it take to make that first one?" And it's just, yeah, it's definitely like a mind screw going on, you know, like this impatience, but then you got to like sit back and take a breath and realize, you know, things could always be worse, I guess. Yeah, things could always be worse.
That's the truth. And the hardest thing, I think, is that people see that the vaccine is coming, but they think, okay, I can relax. And that's the unfortunate thing. None of us can relax. We've got to stick strictly with the protocols until it's our turn.
Yeah. Yeah, even after the second shot, it's like, yeah, you might get the second shot in February. I got the first Moderna shot the first week of January. And so I'm supposed to get the second Moderna shot a month after that. And even so, at the briefing, at the whole briefing of that of the vaccine, they said consider 2021 social just as 2020.
Mm.
I know you got it, but there's a lot of people that didn't. And you still got to wear masks, 6 feet apart, social distance, quarantine, still a pandemic going on. And so a lot of people ask me, like, how do you feel that you got the first shot? And I said, listen, my advice is that we're just gonna have to treat 2021 just like we treated 2020.
Yeah.
We might just have way better leadership, thank God. So it's just going to be way better leadership, maybe a little bit calmer and better unity.
Let us hope.
So yeah, I mean, it's just like for me, I always multiply something by 1.5,
Mm-hmm.
if not twice. So when we were looking at 2020, I think about April, I was like all of 2021 as well. And my wife was like, "Are you kidding me?" And I'm like, "Listen, it's gonna take a little while just to get the vaccine,
Right?
and look at the leadership, and just wait for the progression there." But so, what's next on the agenda? What's the next set of goals? Next set of plans? What's next on the agenda for Mark?
Sure. So 2 of the things that we did last year, we added a couple new competitions that were online competitions, and so those we're bringing both of them back because they were a big success last year. So the first is our animation project. We had never done an animation before, and last year we made it a 48 times 2, so you actually had 4 days to do it, and that's going to come up in April this year. And essentially, it's the exact same type of thing. We'll give them a genre, character, prop, and line, and they can make it. They can use any style of animation they want, 2D, 3D, stop motion, you name it. And we had about 70 teams last year. The winner was a great film from France. Those are available on our YouTube channel, which is 48HFP Central. And so people love doing that so much that we're bringing it back. The other thing we did, which was kind of fun, is called the Global Film Challenge. And so we limited this to 12 teams in each of our regular 48-hour cities. There were no prerequisites, first come, first serve, but we capped it at 12. And what happened is, once local judges selected the city winner, we then put them into a big, almost like a March Madness grid for online voting. So you would have this film against this film to see who represents the US, and then we had a big drawing to see who the US was going to go up against, and then the same thing, we used the brackets to determine the winners. What was interesting there is that the 2 finalists last year were both from Latin America. We had Bogota going up against Colombia, and Colombia was the winner. So that whole competition is going to come back in May. And then we're going to hold off on our regular tour of all the cities until June. So for those of you out there who are looking to make another 48-hour film, those are some options coming your way. One of the things that you might find interesting, Glenn, is the way we've got it set up. We actually have a network of city producers in these 115 cities around the world. And it's those people who bring the project to their local film community. Okay. The big thing there, of course, is finding that theater that they're going to partner with, so that they know that the filmmakers know that their films will be seen. And then they ship all of the winning films to us, or send them electronically now. And in March each year, we do a big 4-day awards festival called Filmopalooza. So that's coming up this March 18th through the 21st. And because we're forced to go online with it, that's going to give us a greater opportunity to do a lot more workshops and to offer them to filmmakers around the world. So we've got 20 workshops already set up that are going to cover everything from acting to directing to writing. So really going in depth on some of these things. And then in addition to attending the workshops, you can see all of the city winning films, and there'll be a bunch of networking opportunities so you can meet like-minded people from around the world. So So that's
awesome.
all on the horizon.
Hell yeah, man. And I got to apologize. I didn't realize that I'm here with such a celebrity, the creator of the 48-hour film project, and that's awesome because, yeah, I mean, again, I think I told you, I think starting in 05, I graduated in 04, and then I was blessed to just get a job right out of at Discovery Channel, right out of college.
Nice.
And I think a couple of colleagues of mine that went from school to Discovery. There was like 4 of us that had just graduated with each other, and we went straight to Discovery.
Nice.
For years we had been discussing this, and then I think it took some challenges for me to leave Discovery. I was there for a while, working on a lot of passion projects, side projects, trying to make some money from those and trying to get those out, and then I left there, went full-time freelance, and then joined the military, the National Guard, part-time, as you know, National Guard, like 1 week in a month, 2 weeks in the summer type of deal, unless all hell breaks loose. But
right.
there was a couple of trips there with the military, but it's just been full-time freelance. And yeah, this is definitely something that I've always had in the back of my mind. Like, there's that challenge, that filmmaking, that creative, that producing creative challenge. But yeah,
and what's also fun is to see how it's a springboard for a lot of people to other things. We've had a guy, I remember this is going back a few years, but in Greensboro. So this guy formed his team in Greensboro, and he calls his friend in LA, and the friend in LA is doing graphic design work in LA. He moved there because he wanted to do something bigger, but the only job he could find is doing graphic design work. So the Greensboro team leader calls his friend and says, "Hey, why don't you come back and direct this 48-hour film I'm going to make?" So they come back and he directs it. It wins Greensboro. It's one of our top 10 films, so we take it to the Cannes Film Festival. And when the director gets back to LA, he starts showing it around. Within a year, he was directing TV for Comedy Central on the basis of that take. So it's exciting to see where people can go. We've got a bunch of actors who have kind of progressed up over the years and are now making regular Hollywood type stuff, and so it's fun.
All right. Well, once this COVID's over, I might have to give you a call back. I might have to go submit online. Figure something out. I mean, I've always known that. It's just, if you take a risk, risk versus reward, and risk gets reward and that sort of thing. And taking a chance and experimenting, that's what me and my 2 main colleagues, we always discuss that. It's like, take a risk, experiment, play around. I mean, just play around. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what filmmaking is. It's imagination. It's getting paid to pretend, like when we were kids running around cowboys and Indians, or cops and robbers, or what is it, Cowboys versus Aliens, or whatever the kids are playing, Nerf guns and stuff like that, or hide and seek, and it's just, that's what filmmaking really is. Yeah. Essentially just better equipment and recording it,
Right, so, exactly.
So what's the new year, new you, new normal, the new Mark?
All right, getting personal now. So I'm trying to do a lot better with my schedule, especially since we've all been stuck at home. It's easy to get sucked into YouTube or Facebook or whatever, et cetera, et cetera. So now I've dedicated myself, and so far 3 weeks in, it's working out pretty well. But I'm making sure I'm an 11 to bed, 6 a.m. up. That's my perfect schedule. So that's what I'm doing. And so 3 days a week, when I'm up at 6, I'm hitting the road, getting out for a run. And the other 2 days, I'm doing some writing, trying to get back into more of the creative end of things, not just being an event manager. And then a couple of evenings, I'm taking a French class online. It's got to keep improving the mind,
Oh yeah.
So that's the start of the new year, and then of course just surfing the pandemic wave, trying to keep the business moving in the right direction. the government's coming out with some more PPP loans and grants this week, actually. So I've got a small staff. We're 4 people, but I want to do the best I can by them to keep them employed as much as I can. So it's a lot of challenges, a lot of work, but it's all very rewarding.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's tricky. It's. I was on the edge of partaking in some of that, and I was blessed. For the last 5 years, I've delved a lot into live streaming. You know, a lot of the technical aspects of live streaming, podcasts, webinars, seminars, conferences, two-way meets, things of that nature.
Sure.
You know, Microsoft at the convention center, something like that, and having delved into that, but also being familiar with Zoom or Google Hangouts or Google Meets, Teams, whatever, you know, whatever anybody's using, you know, Facebook portal, just staying on top of a lot of these technical things. I really lucked out, and I've been able to stay relatively
nice,
paid and employed and afloat with you know, a lot of remote virtual events, remote work, virtual, you know, productions, that sort of thing. It's just Zoom, basically live streaming Zoom, just like this podcast.
You're the Zoom expert.
Yeah, pretty much. Absolutely. I mean, you know, I would, if I remembered to update the software, then I'd be an expert. There's a lot of times I'm like, I'll go weeks, I forget to update the software, and then there's all these new gadgets that I could have used a week before to make the show look better or whatever. So, you know, yeah, but you know, hindsight being 2020, there's a lot of things I wish I did, but then there's a lot of things that I did do.
Sure.
That I don't know, you know, being somehow blessed to have that foresight, or somehow have that foresight to be blessed. I don't know how it works, but it works somehow.
Yeah,
so
it does. It does. Well, I mean, people are adaptable is the main thing, and that's one of the big things about filmmaking is the creative problem solving, right? Because whether you're making a 48-hour film or a regular film, you are going to have a problem just about every day of some scope, right? And figuring out how you're going to solve that problem is the biggest challenge of filmmaking.
You make an excellent point. So many times, and my biggest moneymaker, you know, for the last 10 years, maybe, you know, 12 years, has been as an AD, production manager, production coordinator, but a lot of AD work. And so in the last 5 years, I started delving into a lot of acting. And as an actor, I'd see a lot of, you know, way more versed, way more experienced professional directors and what they do, and how much simpler they're willing to work, and how much simpler they are. You know, what's more, and I can see what's more important is performance is more important than this super cool 20-minute long duration take, you know, nonstop take. What's more important is getting the pieces to the puzzle, getting the performances just right, following the script, making the day, because at the end of the day, you have to make your day, and then because you got a schedule for tomorrow, and you can't, you know, throw in what you missed on day one into day two, then you're not going to get anything done. So, you know, kind of simplifying it, and the discipline to make subtle sacrifices and subtle compromises. You know, it's a very tricky balance creatively, because you always want everything to go everybody wants everything to go perfect. But I think at the end of the day, it's a matter of a little bit of discipline to say, listen, at the end of the day, we need a film. You can't have this one perfect shot and sacrifice the rest of the film. Let's focus on the performances. Let's focus on just getting the meat and potatoes, and then we can get some dessert and icing on top of that dessert if needed. But what's the meat and potatoes? You know, your master, your two shot, your over the shoulder. Right. Now let's play with that. And I think it goes back to the basics, and then you're able to like add some icing on top of the dessert. But you know, I've dealt with a lot of filmmakers that are hard-headed like that, and they got to have everything to such a degree, and it's like, And on top of that, I'm sure you've heard the phrase, "Oh, we'll fix it in post. We'll fix it in post. We'll fix it in post." I try to avoid that. And I say, how can we dumb this down and simplify it here on set so that it's not a post nightmare?
Sure.
It works both production wise and post production wise, but it's much more simpler. You know, you can go handheld. You can just go sticks. It doesn't have to be this one long duration take on a jib in and out. It doesn't have to be this crazy Steadicam thing.
Right.
It can just be handheld or sticks. Make it simple, dumb it down, get rid of some dialogue, simplify some dialogue. And it's little things like that. But
yeah, I think you're on the right track there. And that's another way that some people use the 48. Everybody comes to the 48 with a different reasons. Some people they're new to filmmaking, they want to try it out. Other people want to try new styles. You know, I can't afford to do this when I'm getting paid, but I can test it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, other people want to test potential team members. Hey, I've heard about this guy or this girl. I want to work with them on my 48, and if it works, as I hope it will, then I'm going to employ her to work with me on future projects, right? So that's so there's lots of reasons that people do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's another reason, because I am kind of familiar with these challenges, this discipline of making a couple of sacrifices and then embracing some of the faults, you know, wabi-sabi, which is like that embracing, using the faults, using some of these cracks, you know, and actually embracing that and finding art and beauty in, you know, some of these mistakes. You know, I've been binge watching Portlandia with Fred Armisen, and it's such a goofy, crazy, weird show, and you can just see that they're just having fun doing it. It's very low budget. Sometimes, other times, you can see that they're pumping a little bit more time and effort into some scenes.
Sure.
Now, later on in the show, but just starting off, they were just having fun and shooting like some weird, quirky scenes and being goofy. And they'll keep in maybe some goofs. They'll keep in some outtakes, because why not? It's funny. It's fun. It's art. It's just having fun with the whole creative process. I think a lot of people, a lot of beginners lose sight of that. And I think, you know, for freelancers, for independents, for struggling artists like myself, having failed, it's like, well, listen, this is kind of good, and there's a lot of screw ups in it. Let's just embrace that screw up.
Yeah.
And kind of like implement that into the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what you have to do. I mean, serendipity does play a huge part. I can tell you dozens of times where people will come back on the Sunday night and tell us their horror stories of the weekend, but the horror story of, hey, we lost this set, this location to shoot, but we found a better one. That's almost inevitably the way that it works.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of good serendipity happens out there. Yeah.
Absolutely. If there was one last point, one last bit of advice that you'd want to give to what few viewers I do have, what would that be? One last point, one last bit of advice.
Well, I'd have to say, you know, follow your dreams as best you can, because if you set a goal for yourself and just, as they say, put it out there in the universe, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. Sometimes some people are lucky and they meet instant success, but you just keep at it. You take the first steps, and the first steps leads to another step, and the next step leads to you meeting somebody, and the next thing you know, stuff has come together for you and you're on your path. That is, I think, my biggest advice of really, remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to get started.
Oh yeah, you just got to get started. Sometimes, you know, just it'll lead you in such a different direction that you might like or love even more.
Right. Exactly right.
I mean, that's happened to me a couple of times. And, you know, I didn't take, for example, I didn't take the live streaming, doing these events, doing these corporate industrial events as, you know, seriously as I did before. or as I do now. I didn't take them as seriously. And then the next thing I know, but I'm doing a pretty good job. Of course, I'm going to, do the best I can, show up on time, rock out great shots, rock out, great transitions and all that stuff for corporate and industrial stuff that only 10,000 people, 5,000 people are going to watch. And then next thing I know, the people that I work for and their clients, they want to send me to New Orleans. They want to send me to Philly. They want to send me to Florida. And I'm like, holy shit. Now, like this, I'm traveling. I'm going to all these cool places. I mean, the work sometimes is really fun. Sometimes it's boring as hell.
Right.
But I'm in New Orleans for 5 days on their dime. That's you can't knock that. So
yeah.
And then it's kind of saved my ass during this quarantine. I've stayed relatively employed. So you're right. I mean, it's just something that I also started to delve into, and it's been a blessing for me. And
I just heard a story about Martin Short, the actor comedian, this weekend, where he was a pre-med major for 2 years in college. And then he decided that wasn't for him. So he switched out to social work. And while I was signing up for class in social work, he had to pick another class, and he picked an acting class because he had acted in high school. Changed his life completely.
Yeah.
Went on from there as to the person we know and love.
Right. I mean, you never know where it's going to take you. I chose acting because I needed something to fill in the schedule. In the DC area, how many independent films or independent TV pilots are shot on a weekly or monthly basis where they need a first or second AD?
Right.
And so I'm getting some camera op work. I'm getting some AC work. Once in a blue moon, I might get an AD gig. But then I just started delving into acting because I have the military background. Mm-hmm. So all I applied to was, detective this, officer that,
right,
sergeant this, lieutenant that, maybe a stepfather here, maybe the killer, maybe the perp, but it was all law enforcement and military roles that I was applying for. I already had the uniforms, so I would cover some stuff up or take some stuff off, take my own headshots because I'm experienced with that. And there was like 2 years, straight 2 years, I was steadily working, acting in something, commercials, crime shows, industrials, whatever, steadily working probably 2 straight years as an actor.
Wow.
And so much stuff out there, I have pretty hefty reel as an actor. Never dreamed in a million years back in 2015 that I'd be an actor, but it was out of like, listen, I want to be on film. I got to be on set.
Yeah.
I got to live on set. I got to work on set. So I could probably play a detective. Let me try my hand at that. And 2 years later, it's just, they can't cast me anymore. I've been in so many of the local productions and so many of the, the crime shows that are produced out here in the DMV.
Yeah.
Like you gotta wait a year. You have been in the first, second, and third season. We can't put you in the fourth season of this crime show. They're going to think it's a recurring character, and it's not.
Right.
Each episode is a true story about a different case. So, it's a little goofy things like that. But Mark, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Any plugs, links, socials you want to put out there?
Well, just do 48hourfilm.com is where you can find us. You can see a bunch of our films there. We also have 48 HFP Central on YouTube for even more of our films. And be on the lookout for the Animation Project and the Global Film Challenge.
Mark Ruppert, 48 Hour Film. I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your story. 2001 was the first 48-hour film project that the VHS tapes and the mini DV tapes. That's awesome. Well, again, thanks for coming on. Learned a lot. Continue to be inspired. To my viewers, I hope I've earned the privilege of your time and viewership. I know my guest has. And until next time, you know what to do.
Bye.